Well, thank you, everyone. And as is a status quo for the last presentation of the day, we certainly understand we're between you and a couple of drinks, so we'll do our best. My name is Dave Bambry, and I'm an Assistant Vice Chancellor for Alumni Relations here in Urbana-Champaign. And I have the privilege of kicking off our project today, Matchmaker. So I've been on campus about 7 months now, and I've identified one problem, just one in my time here. Thank you for laughing at that. I had to kind of prompt that the last time I did that, but that's my poor attempt at a joke. But I actually wouldn't call it a problem. I would call it an opportunity. We have over 736,000 alumni from the University of Illinois system who we would like to engage. And how we go about doing this varies a great deal depending on the individual, especially when it comes to recognition and awards. One major tool that we all look to in order to help us understand our alumni and prospects is TED. But I would ask the question, how do we use that data specifically for awards and recognition to better help us with our work? For many of us, that work with awards and recognitions, TED may only play a small role, if any role at all. Many of us in this room who have worked through an awards process or maybe who have led an awards process have probably sat around a round table, have gotten a lot of blank stares back from your nominating committee or a group of faculty, and they've raised the question, how do we get more nominations, and how do we evaluate the nominations that we have at a higher level? At the same time, then we go back as those folks in charge and we look at a ton of data and try to find what I would call a needle in the haystack to go back to that group and say, hey, do you know this person? They look really good on paper, but how do we actually get them to be nominated? Who knows this person? It's kind of a frustrating process. It also typically goes something like this. We typically have a Word document or an Excel sheet that we look at maybe once or twice a year, maybe more if you're better at your job than I am. You might add a name or two over time that you've heard from your dean or a high-level faculty member, but usually those are very static documents, something that maybe you don't even load into the database. So that's really what the problem is that we see today. While this isn't a terrible process, it is one that takes a ton of time and doesn't lead to many new nominations or a high level of evaluation for the nominations that you have. So I would ask the question, how do we become better with this? So our tool, the Matchmaker, is a process and technological tool which would serve as the match.com for constituent engagement, recognition, and awards. By knowing nomination criteria acquired from our clients, all of you, the Matchmaker will sift through large amounts of data available in TED and sort through qualified constituents who would be eligible for these award opportunities. Second, the data would identify constituents who have already received awards and look to bump them to other recognition and awards opportunities, creating a strategic and chronological plan throughout the course of the lifetime of the donor or prospect. Additionally, TED records would have updated flags or attributes notifying users of the constituents in real time and their qualifications for those recognition opportunities. So why now? That's a big question I think we're asking for a lot of these projects in the room today. I would argue that there are a couple of reasons why this is a great project right now. One that we've already established is the process that we currently use, or that many of us use, is very outdated and completely inefficient. It also typically relies on one or two individuals to really lead that process. So if they walk out the door, something happens to that data, that typically goes away. And that's a very scary place to be in if you're a department head, if you're in charge of awards, you're a dean, you're a high-level administrator, because you certainly want to acknowledge and recognize your alumni. Also, with the current focus on engagement and bringing expanded value to the fundraising and cultivation pipeline, our product provides a quantitative view of the process. So myself, I'm an engagement officer, I'm an alumni relations professional. I think in the last 5 years, we're being asked a lot more to quantify our results, and anyone in the engagement space, I think, can kind of aid in that process and understand that process like myself. We feel that through this database enhancement, we can add quantitative results to that. Lastly, I think that we all agree, at least on our team, that TED is at a stage where we can truly utilize enhancements within TED rather than living with just a bare bones product. So I think that we're all getting to the point where we're very comfortable with TED, getting in there, utilizing kind of the core features of that. We feel as though that this enhancement is a time to kind of use the bells and whistles within TED to get beyond the core values and really get into why we would bring such a diverse product on. So metrics, another topic that comes up a lot in my world these days. We have a couple different metrics that I want to just talk about. These are really metrics that we've used based off some surveying and some research that we've done. One full-time employee spending 30% of their time on the awards process, there's absolutely no way that they can utilize and really look at 12,000 plus records in a valuable way. And 12,000 was kind of our threshold. That's what we saw kind of across the board as a minimum. You look at a college like LAS, you're looking at 100,000 records. There's no way a person can look at all that and be productive in that way. Also, when it comes to generating more gifts, at the end of the day, that's why we're all here. Whether you're on the data team, you're an engagement officer, you're a frontline fundraiser, we're all here to generate more gifts. While our initial product really focuses specifically on awards, the build-out will encompass and engage a process that can fit into every phase of the donor life cycle. Lastly, we can track and engage who we should recognize at a higher level. Through our initial research, on average, units are only currently reviewing about 3% of their alumni base for awards. So what is happening in that other 97% that we are missing? That is something that through our product we feel we can make a great dent in and really find value in that other 97%. So with the Matchmaker tool, we expect those numbers to go up exponentially. So lastly, when we think about what this product is, it's almost just as important to think about what this product is not. So in phase one, we'll really look at we are looking at the internal university awards. So this would be specific to alumni awards around the university. In phase two, we would look at things like board member matching. So we know that if we're building a tool or an algorithm that works with criteria for awards, we can do something very similar with board member matching. We also look at other things like consecutive year of giving. We look at external awards. So these are things like state level awards, national awards, industry awards that we as advancement professionals or a university may be putting our alumni or prospects up for. Lastly, significant donor dates. So this could be something along the lines of the anniversary of establishing an endowment. This could be something along the lines of you've given your 20th scholarship out or your 100th scholarship out. Those are areas that we may want to know down the road and something that I think we would want to recognize our alumni and donors for. So what is this not? This is not a volunteer engagement platform. This won't track hours of volunteerism and things like that. This will also not be a recognition society and recognition credit tracker. We know those live in other places within TED. Those are very vital criteria to the work that we will use within our algorithm, but those will not be specific pieces that we actually have within our platform. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Erin Kirby, and she's going to walk through the database a little bit.
Is this one on? Okay. Thank you, David. Like David, and I'm sure many of you, I've been frustrated with the only option of using spreadsheets when it comes to track award nominations. So I'm excited to show you this demo in TED. This was built in the test environment, and you can go ahead. So you'll see that we've created a functional area in the familiar top blue banner of TED. Within that functional area, you have the option to both search and also develop reports related to matchmaking. We'll go into search first. The search basically allows you to search by committee name, otherwise known as awards or recognition opportunities in TED. This search right here brings up 3 of our prototype awards that we focused on for this project specifically. If you click on one of them, it goes directly to that committee page. And within that committee page, you'll find the Matchmaker match board, which allows you the opportunity to see the data in 3 ways. At the far left is Matchboard award recipients. So these are previous recipients of that award. And you can drill down by constituent to see more information about each individual. The middle column are qualified nominees. This is a list of anyone who is real-time qualified for that award opportunity, as well as the criteria that would earn them this place on this list. If you click on a constituent, you can also see their rank as well as any other recognition opportunities that they may qualify for within the system. And finally, a Matchboard hierarchy tab, which is something that units can establish during the onboarding process. So if indeed you have a larger department and you view your awards as kind of having this hierarchy to them, you can establish that within this structure too. But it's not necessary if it doesn't exist in your department. And we'll walk back out and we'll look at the reports. So we want to develop a report that you could take with you in meetings with committee members. And there are 2 ways to run reports for both award recipients and qualified nominees. If we look at the qualified nominees, the report actually spits out more information, including lifetime giving, business title, age, and you can, of course, export this to any tool that you need to take with you and continue to sort depending on what's important to you or important to academic leadership in your unit. So that's the short version of our demo of our product, which currently exists in TED test environment. We developed this tool by talking with some of you in the room as well as individuals across all 3 universities. We specifically chose to talk to key constituents who manage this process, recognizing that a lot of people have a hand in recognition and awards. So we talked with alumni relations professionals, gift officers, at the 3 universities. We also identified some early adopters for this process or for this product who we feel could really take this and run with it. They have staff in place who are familiar with using TED already. Those units are computer science at Urbana, math and LAS at Urbana, as well as applied health sciences at UIC. So everyone's really excited about it, and we're excited that we were able to showcase our product to all 3 universities prior to today. Our timeline indicates that we have plans to onboard these units over the next few months leading up to the next pilot, which launches in April. So we'll be working with those units on a timeline, probably over the next 6 months to launch their unique criteria for their programs. Our team consists of myself and David, Sam Hendon, who is a program or awards specialist in the Department of Computer Science, who I think is viewing us from home with her newborn baby right now. Tanwir Alam, and Shweta, who are both at the foundation, as well as a development and implementation team who are really the brains behind the tool development in TED. Finally, we recognize that critical to the effectiveness of this tool is the data that exists in TED. And it's, of course, been a common question we've received. We've thought a lot about how to improve this. So data integration is not only important to Matchmaker, it's important to a lot of things that we do within our business. Portfolio management and research, affiliation scores, engagement indices. I mean, it's all over the place with benefiting us, and we all recognize the need to improve this. We feel that we would benefit from this, but the rest of the organization would benefit from it if some additional investment were made in the integration, data integration program. We've defined that as one student to help with committee data loads, as well as one FTE who would manage data integration for all of TED. So this isn't specific to Matchmaker. This is just a need that I think has always existed and we would also benefit from. In order for the Matchmaker to truly exist, our ask is that we get to continue to development this in phase 2 in the next Accelerator batch, which with a goal being to work toward a product that could scale to all of your units. Some of the changes we would incorporate within phase 2 include onboarding of new units and their criteria. If you're interested in onboarding with us, we have a toolkit that's just outside the front door that explains how to get in touch with us, as well as how you would need to ready your data for implementation into the system. We also think that we could analyze other recognition opportunities similar to what David talked about in the beginning, which would include board member matching and other things that we think this tool could be put to use for. A display hierarchy, as well as additional reporting enhancements could also be done in phase 2. So with that, we ask if you have any questions for us. Thank you.
Thank you both for for the presentation and for the product. Is this coming through? Okay. Can you speak a little bit more about the data integration needs? What kind of data needs to be integrated for this to be successful?
Sure. I think we have developed, okay, here they are. We've developed a standard list of criteria that are commonly used in awards and recognition, mainly awards. And we've located the location where all of this data exists currently in TED. I think we know historically, because this process has not been one in TED, that some of the information defining these criteria live in spreadsheets across the university. So that is one of the needs we have, is to work closely with not only our own team or within the foundation, but also with the units to determine what criteria is important to them and how do we prioritize getting that data into the right place into TED so that it works within the algorithm.
So a question about the algorithms. Who determines the factors that go into those algorithms? Can they be changed? How nimble are they so that these can be repurposed at the turn of a dime if needs change, criteria changes?
You want me to take that? So we very much see this as a uniquely individualized process for all units, recognizing that they're looking at a lot of the same criteria. However, they may have academic leadership that values one of these over another. So during the onboarding process, we walk them through thinking through that criteria and rank ordering it. Our toolkit also explains this too. You're right that may change with a new dean or a new department head who feels that perhaps another criteria should move to the top of the list. I believe this would be a pretty simple change I'm getting nods from all the people who know behind the scenes. It would just be a matter of communicating that with the Matchmaker team or the developers at the foundation to make that modification. We hope that over time to surface this list and the process for which you would customize your criteria to a screen in TED so the unit has actual maneuverability to that structure of their criteria and their awards.
First of all, I have to pimp Tyler. This is your wheelhouse, man. Well, how come you're not asking any questions? I'm going to ask questions, but not today. Oh, okay. So just curious, as you guys have assessed the landscape here and the need for this type of tool, how many current awards do we administer across the system right now? So when you think about all the colleges, the units, the associations, the foundations, how many award programs are currently being administered? And would this tool create more potentially? And then do we have the capacity to actually serve all of those who may want to use it?
Okay. So we have this is a great question. We have a solid list of all current committees in TED, both internal and external awards that we've, documented over time. I wish I knew the number, because that's a great question. I don't know, but it's an extensive spreadsheet. I'm looking at Nikki. Maybe she remembers. It's hundreds. I think, our toolkit, we talk through developing, from zero an awards program for your unit and how to strategically think about who it is that you're wanting to recognize and why. And to think carefully about that as well as the criteria that you put up against them. We also talk about refining awards programs to be really beneficial and reflective of the mission of that unit. So I don't think that we're promoting more awards to be made, and if anything, we're hoping that people will recognize this as a standard, or there is a standard that has been set or a guide that they can follow, so that they're not recreating the wheel and popping up a new award here and there. I think to the extent of your question, whether or not we can really handle the influx of new ideas, that's where Tyler probably starts to get nervous, and maybe Joe O'Neill. Our intention is to, with this next phase, really understand the criteria that many of you are looking for, and making sure that the data exists, because beyond that, it's actually the tool is working for them. So I think if we can spend a little bit more time understanding what criteria and data are needed to make this fully functioning, I don't think that it will require us more work in the end. I think we'll be good to go.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I think the increasing the quality of the awards programs is important. I think getting away from that static list and bringing a new crop of nominations or potential nominations forward was a big piece that we wanted to tackle with this. I think we were used to seeing that list of 25 to 30 people that everyone in the room probably knew, but who are we missing, and who don't we know about that's not in the room, and how can we kind of bring those people to the surface? I think the people that we already know about, we're probably doing at least an okay job, if not a good job, of recognizing them and honoring them. It's kind of that next wave of folks that I think we're really targeting. And I think another distinction too, this isn't a product, nor do we see it being a product that gives you the one name that is going to be your awardee. This just provides a platform for you to enhance your evaluation of those individuals. So we don't want to take that personal aspect out of it. We understand there's a place for those awards committees and recognition teams that are out there, and we want that personal touch, but we just want to up the quality of the awards and how they go about that.
This is more of a comment than a question, but I can see this being very useful in the awards administration process. So for David and others in units who are managing awards and working with volunteer committees to do that. I also, a benefit I see in another way, and I wonder how much you've talked about this on your team, is when those of us in the major gift, principal gift space are often looking at strategies for better engaging and moving our donors along the giving pipeline, we sometimes anecdotally come up with, hey, are they an Engineering Hall of Fame, or were they a distinguished alumnus, or what? And so would be the other part, which might be starting with, if Katie Bloom's the prospect, and what matches would she have for possible awards that we might then appropriately nominate her for internally in the first phase, and frankly, I'm also thinking externally if this continues to move. Have you looked at that?
Yes. In fact, it makes the list of our enhancements, which is a constituent-based, or a second tab for constituent view. And this, I understand from our developers, would require some additional resources and work to do, but I think it's a natural component once the information is in there and more committees are uploaded to TED. It's a matter of building the screens in TED and making sure that the algorithms work behind it. So I think it would be likely to say that we would do that, because I think it offers tremendous value. And to the extent that this extends beyond awards, in my role, I think of how can this surface to the top of what we're thinking of when we think about really unique, highly customized engagement touches that wouldn't be on our radar if the system wasn't telling us that they're up and coming. I mean, I think we oftentimes think of these things and then we check to make sure whether or not the timeline is accurate. And I think this system could ultimately bring that to surface where we could really plan strategically to utilize those in a prospect management plan.
Question from elsewhere in the room. Matt.
So I guess we all know that the data in TED is unreliable at best, and it seems to me unrealistic that a student and one data integration person is going to make the data that much better. I mean, we have a full research team who does that all day long. So, someone could be a young CEO with an exit of $10 billion, but if it doesn't exist in TED, it doesn't exist. So how are you going to get around those sorts of data issues given kind of current state personnel constraints?
It's a fair question. I think that the tool is now built. So we have this tool, you saw it working. It's surfacing real people into real committees that have really meaningful criteria. So at the very minimum, it's providing a list that's far more comprehensive than the 3% that any unit was looking at before. So we can start there, which is already an improvement. I think that the more people utilize TED for reasons like this and other things that make their lives a lot easier and more efficient, the more inclined we will all be to implement data that is important to the end product. So we very much view data integration as a joint process shared by the foundation and the units who may have information that the foundation couldn't otherwise get. I pull up this slide because it's in reference to a recent data purchase or partnership that the foundation made. More information will be coming out about that soon, but I think there is an ongoing effort to purchase and acquire data and then get it into TED in the right way. I think this tool is another motivating factor, along with a lot of other things in TED, to make the data even more better over time. So I see this tool as being kind of what you feed it, it will be better, just like everything else in TED. But recognize the concern, it's certainly valid.
Hey, Aaron and David, thank you so much. I think this is a stellar idea. I've been someone who's been a part of this Innovation Accelerator, I think you guys have, and I hope my team doesn't hate me for saying this, but been sort of the gold standard in terms of potential for this particular idea that you have. Also, as someone who worked at the largest college at the university with 160,000 living alumni, I think this tool, especially phase 2, could be especially meaningful and impactful. You know, Matthew may have touched on this a little bit differently, but my thought was that let's say the algorithm does miss some folks, where there'll be some utility in TED so that an MGO or an advancement staffer could click and want a record update for this individual who would be a good fit for the history board or this math award. Because I do think that anecdotally, a lot of good information can be passed along. And have you guys given any thought to that?
I don't know that that's necessarily come up to date, at least in conversations that I've had. We've really looked at relying on the criteria that that's been established for the award and ultimately what would become the board member matching and things like that. And again, this isn't a situation where we want this to be the only piece in play, right, when you're making these decisions or when you're choosing an award winner. This is just to help kind of bring more of that pull forward and actually show you, based on your criteria, who actually lives in this space. And some folks that maybe you think are high achieving as far as awards criteria, maybe they won't play as well, right? And I think it's also a way for us. I work mostly with external individuals when I'm looking at awards, like, you know, alumni boards and things, and giving them kind of a starting point as far as, okay, how do I even start to compare, you know, Joe and Lisa or whomever it's going to be, right? I think this, with the percentages and different things like that, how they fit into your criteria, that gives them a starting point as far as that goes. That said, I think there are definitely areas where the personal piece of this needs to still come in, whether that's a gift officer, or department head, whatever that might look like, to also inject other folks that they know are high quality, but maybe for whatever reason the data's not good or something like that. I hope that answers part of that question at least.
I'll also say that within the toolkit, we describe the process by which you set criteria, and the way the algorithm has been written for computer science, which was our prototype, was that an or was used, not an and was used. So these names are surfacing because they meet some of the criteria. They meet certainly the necessary criteria, but also the perhaps preferred criteria. So you can, when it spits out a list for you, you can sort by what's appropriate, you know, important to you. And so I would hope that that would not miss anyone. Certainly there's that risk out there that we can address in phase 2 a little bit further.
One more question in the back.
So with your algorithm, will it ensure diversity in some of the matches it makes and making sure that the same individuals aren't being matched for the same awards year after year or for numerous awards at the same time across campus?
So that's not something that we have built in right now. I think the piece that we would kind of look at as far as how to hedge that off right now would be the kind of that pipeline piece. So looking at other opportunities. So if you were looking at individuals and kind of pulled their record down, you could see other opportunities that they were kind of up against. I think the other piece that this brings into question is how do we better use this with kind of those engagement pipelines or those gift pipelines, right? So this would call the question that if somebody falls in this criteria, is there a need to kind of communicate that out if there's multiple criteria that or multiple awards that they may be up for? Is there a need to kind of communicate that out to a wider audience? I think this also brings in the tier conversation. So we have this tier hierarchy of awards. Certainly there could be some decisions that have to be made as to, do you have to follow that hierarchy? I know there's probably, a bunch of opinions in the room as far as how that goes and who skips what's awards and how that kind of all plays. But I do think there'd have to be some ground rules probably laid out as far as how that all works.